What does it mean to be Hawaiian in the 21st century and beyond? How do we honor ʻike kūpuna while boldly shaping the future? It means honoring tradition even as we spark new innovation. It means a constant cycle of perpetuation, revitalization, and evolution. Join Moses Goods, Marques Marzan, Dre Kalili, Maliā Kaʻaihue, and Alapaki Nahale-a as they challenge us to think bigger, dig deeper, and reimagine what it means to live Hawaiian today.
Aloha mai kākou, aloha. Yeah, again, I'm Alapaki Nahale-a. I'm a board member for Hawaiian Council, and I'm so honored and privileged to be moderating this panel today, talking about the 21st century Hawaiian and how do you continue to evolve our culture by staying rooted in ʻike kūpuna. To explore that topic, we've asked this amazing group of Kanaka to serve as our panel today. And Dre Kalili, currently Pelekikena for the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs. Moses Goods, actor and playwright, who many, if not all of you have seen. Incredible performance in Chief of War. We have Maliā Kaʻaihue, my Hilo sister, born in Hilo. She's an entrepreneur, investor, and community leader who founded DTL, a Hawaiian strategy studio. She lives in Makaha with her husband and 8 children. Yes. And Marques Hanalei Marzan, cultural advisor, and the Wayne Pitluck and Judith Pyle curator for cultural resilience at the Bishop Museum. You know, our panelists come from a really diverse background. They have extensive skill sets and competencies, but they're united in their aloha for our lahui. And I'm excited to hear what they have to share with us today. They are a great group to contemplate this question, so please give them another round of applause for agreeing to do this. Thank you all very much. Before we begin, let me offer a couple of perhaps foundational or framing thoughts. And the first is that this question is a natural question. All living cultures have to address this issue of the evolution of a culture while we stay rooted in the wisdom of our kūpuna and our history. And Hawaiians have had to do that from the moment they landed in Hawaii. And we certainly have to continue to do that today. It's also not an academic or theoretical question, right? Culture lives every day, and it's based on what we choose to do and how we choose to act. And I want to acknowledge that the importance of us making room for this here today is because the natural evolution of our culture was interrupted, right? And our connection to ʻike kūpuna was severed for many of us. And so we have to be extremely intentional when we contemplate this question. And finally, on that note, I want to acknowledge that not all cultures have survived, and that our ability to even be here and have this conversation is based on the leadership, the courage, the perseverance of folks before us, many of whom are in this room today. And so can we give a hand to all of those who have fought to ensure we can talk about this. I do want to point out one shiny example. I see we have in the back of the room Governor John Waihee, who I feel like he was a 21st century Hawaiian in the 20th century. And so thank you for that modeling. Okay, let's get to our panels. The first question I want to ask is, why do you think you were asked to be on this panel, and why did you say yes?
So I think the second question is easier. When Mehana Hain texts you, you just say yes, right? Because if you say no, she'll probably send someone else, and there are other consequences. But I think I was asked, as the leader of the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs and that movement, you know, we are 107 years old this year, so we're bridging, you know, multiple centuries. Our founder was also born in the 19th century, so the ʻike kind of spans this time, and I think we have a lot to look back on to figure out how we move forward.
For me, Hanalei and I were literally in the room when Mehana had the idea. Right, we were getting ready for Mamo to walk on Mamo, so we had to say yes. But no, I think the reason why I was asked to be on this panel is, so 2 years ago, this is before Chief of War, I was in the gym, and this young Kanaka came up to me, and he recognized me from my work, and he said, How did you get to be where you are right now? It was never an option for me. So my line of work, my oihana, is not something that Kanaka normally exist in. It's not a space that we would normally exist in because it's still sort of, I guess, a modern 21st century type thing. So I think that's the reason why I was asked to be on this panel. And then also Chief of War itself, which I think right now many people are celebrating this moment, but at the same time, a lot of Kanaka are a little ha'alulu about what this means to us, having our stories being put on not even national, global scale, and just sorting through those feelings. So I think that's why I'm on the panel. I don't know.
Similarly, Mehana was my college counselor at Kamakoko Kalani. So when Mehana told you this is the next step, you just say yes, ai kumu. So that's the easy part of the question for sure. And then on top of that, I feel like everybody on this stage, we're all storytellers in different ways, shapes, and forms. I tell business stories, and the work that I do is around lifting up Native Hawaiian entrepreneurs. But each person on this stage, is also representing, 40,000 plus kūpuna with us. And if you think about the 1,500 of us in the room, and the 60 million kūpuna that have gathered with us today, this week for this convention, it's a powerful thing. And I think, that's why we're all here to share our stories.
I believe Moses answered my question about Mehana reaching out to us as well at the Mamo Wearable Art Show. And, when she asked me, I was thinking about why this particular topic. But as a museum representative, Bishop Museum representative in culture, and as a cultural advisor, as well as a curator, I draw upon all of the ʻike kūpuna that has been taught to me by my kūpuna within my community, through hula, through oli, through hana no eau, and bring that into a world that's typically academically grounded in thinking. The combination of community and culture rarely speak in the historical practices of museums. It's always a preservation aspect of a community or story, never a resilient celebratory expression of a community's vibrancy and life. So I think in my role at Bishop Museum, I bridge both of those worlds together, both within my community as a representative of the museum, as well as a representative of my community in the museum setting. So I think I can kind of add those conversations in both directions in that way.
Wonderful, mahalo. As Native Hawaiians and our native kin, we honor aina as kūpuna. And so who's the aina you'd like to bring with you today as we have our conversation?
So when I think of my kūpuna, there are several places, Hali'iwa included, Kalihi included, but I think all those paths brought me to where I am now, which is Manana Oahu.
Question again.
Who's the aina you'd like to bring with you today?
Aina.
Yeah, aina is kūpuna.
Yeah. Especially right now when we're still going through, Maui is still going through a time of healing. I just want to mention Maui right now, which is where I'm from, and also the I guess my first kumu is Akone Akana. And right now that, of course, Moku'ula is going through what it's going through, I just want to bring his name up into this place right now.
Yep. For myself, my kula'iwi is in Wauhinu, in Ko'u, and Kaimuki, and my one hanau in Hilo. And then I live in Makaha, in my husband's community with our ohana. So those are the places. Ka'ala's my mauna, Makaha's my kai. Those are the places I bring with me.
The aina that I bring with me is my tutukane's papale lauhala. That was the thing that intrigued me ever since I was a young boy. It inspired me to dig deeper into my Hawaiian history and culture. as I had no one within my family that could share that with me. And that kūpuna, that mea kūpuna that resided on top of my tutukane's head was my aina, the thing that fed me to bring me to where I am today.
Mahalo, we honor all the aina you bring and all the aina that our audience brings with them today. Speaking of ʻike kūpuna, I want to ask this question in a more personal fashion. So who is the kūpuna that you have looked to or called on to deepen your connection to ʻike kūpuna? Maybe we'll start on the other end. We'll give Dre a break.
For me, I've had the honor to connect with so many kūpuna within our community. As I mentioned, I had no one physically within my ohana that could share that knowledge with me. I had definitely my uncles and some of my cousins that shared some of the insights and experiences they had with my kūpuna that had passed on before I was born. But I think the first real kūpuna that gave me that initial push into my journey into ʻike Hawaii was Maliā Kaʻaihue. She was my first kumu ulana lauhala. She was from Papakolea, and she used to teach lauhala classes at the Bishop Museum for many, many years, and that's where I first engaged with the mea, with lauhala, and learning from a kūpuna that was willing to share. And I think that has always been a inspiration for me in her generosity that she shared with me, and hopefully what I have also been able to instill in my students. You know, the giving that she shared with me is something that I share with everyone else, and hopefully they can share with other people into the future.
I think that, all of us collectively are always thinking about how we become tomorrow's ancestor. What are the legacy pieces that we are building upon, that have come before us, that we continue to build upon, that we're going to leave behind for the next 7 generations. So I think about all of the kūpuna that we continue to collectively remember along the way, many seen and unseen, but we're in this conscious process of remembering, whether it's a cultural practice, whether it's our language, we're in this constant remembering state. And so 2 individual people that impacted my life, my grandmother, her name is Mary Hunt. She was pure English, born in Hawaii in 1917, dropped out of Sacred Hearts Academy in the 7th grade and started a business. So that's where my business mo'okua house starts. And then when I married my husband 25 years ago, his grandmother, Frenchie DeSoto, was very much sparked a light in me in a different way, and activated in i'ini to learn more, to be more activated in community. But just as we're moving through this convention, there's so many kūpuna here that came before us that have really led the path. I'm looking at my kumu, Dr. Lili Kalakame'elehiva, right in front of me, who once told me we're gonna have 20,000 PhDs or 100,000 PhDs, and I have dozens and dozens of friends with PhDs now. So it's these stories that our kūpuna keep challenging us with, that in the process of our own remembering, that we're becoming tomorrow's ancestor.
Gave mine away already. So Akone Akana, because you threw me off. You had the list of questions you gave us, and that was number 2, and you threw it in there. Okay, so but let me further that a little bit.
You're professional.
It's going to flow. So I grew up on Maui, but I was actually born in Washington, D.C. And so, by the way, when we saw that video, I was bawling my eyes out back there, because a lot of people know that a lot of us grow up. Even though I grew up on Maui, we moved to Maui when I was 3. I grew up there. I didn't grow up immersed in the culture, and so I went through most of my life knowing a little bit here and there. But it wasn't until my adult life, and I was working in Lahaina. I was doing ulalena in Lahaina, and that's where Akone Akana was. And I figured how I made my way to him, found my way to him, but I did, and he started to teach me all these things about my own my own line, my own ohana, my own genealogy. The Pi'ilani line was a line that was very, prominent there in Moku'ula, and I didn't know that. And I learned so much from him in a very short amount of time. So he really just put me on a trajectory in terms of taking what I know as a performer, as an actor, and combining that with the ʻike kūpuna that he started, and I hungrily began to grab more and more from that point on. So I'm again, akonia kana.
So I'm fortunate enough, I have 2 living kupuna. One is 93 and one is 96, and there's still a riot and kick in the pants. And so as much time as I have to spend with them, I will, because they're living and they can still impart that ʻike kūpuna. But I think to the question about who do we go to, I will kind of offer a different tack through the Hawaiian Civic Club movement lens. And it's Prince Kuhio. He is our hokupa'a. And even though the issues that we advocate for and that we consider and we deliberate at our convention change generation over generation, year over year even, the reason that we do this doesn't change in the way that Kuhio's purpose and reason that drove him to do the work he did in Washington, D.C. didn't change. And so when we're kind of presented with new issues and concerns, and we often kind of look to that North Star to think, how might he have done this? And how are we inspired by the work that he did to approach or even tackle an issue? And so while constantly things around us change, how our community looks change, where our community lives changes. That is a fixed point that we often look to, and we're fortunate to have his writings, how he addressed his colleagues in Congress. We have newspaper articles, we have how his colleagues, right, would present, a position or an idea. And so we often look to that to center our movement and make sure we are going to holomua and onipa'a and all the things that I think he would be proud that we are doing today.
Mahalo. Dre, I want to acknowledge what you said, that you have 2 living kupuna. And so many of us, one of the unfortunate situations we've been in is, our kupuna leaving us earlier in the physical form at least. And so I just want to we honored the folks before that kind of paved the way, but can we give a hand to all the kupuna who made it here today? If we want to perpetuate and root in ʻike kūpuna, then they have to be here for us, and then we have to ask. So thank you guys all. The other thing I want to note is how each of you described different, not just different people, but different ways that we can access ʻike kūpuna. And in our context, we're both trying to restore connection while evolving to modern context. And that's no easy feat. So let's broach, what does it mean for culture, particularly Hawaiian culture, to evolve? And maybe you can answer that, what's an example in the modern context of our culture evolving? And why don't we do this one like popcorn? Whoever is ready to answer, you can go first.
I can begin. For me, as a culture bearer and visual artist, museum professional, this lei that I'm wearing physically around my neck I think that is an example of evolution of culture. Our kupuna created things that were necessary for their life, the things that would give them support, sustenance, protection, all of those things that were necessary for them to prosper and create a family and live well. That's no different from what we face today. There are different kinds of issues that we address that our kupuna didn't have to face. Different kinds of technologies and interactions that are completely foreign to some of our kupuna's experiences. And that's okay. I think that's what we have to remember. Our kupuna were very creative people. They made do with everything that they had, and they made the best of it. And so we just have to remember all of the things that we do today come from that training, that inherent knowledge and wisdom that resides within each of us. We are the living examples of all of our kūpuna that have come before us. We are that collective knowledge that exists. And we just have to reawaken that understanding within our practice, within our conversations with one another, engagements. And again, much like this lei around my neck, the technology, the techniques and skills that were used to create this all come from our kūpuna in the form of our kōkō, or carrying nets. I've just transformed it in a way that can be used and worn as an adornment, but also maintaining those concepts of what the kōkō represents. A physical structure to protect a container that was within it when one would travel. And that concept of a umeke or a ipu that's protected with this kōkō is conveyed onto a person in this way. Yeah, that hope and dream and prayer of protection is passed on to those individuals in that context. So, I think how we think about things is very much in alignment with what our kūpuna valued and understood. It is just putting it into a different perspective in a context that is important for us today, and how we can move that forward into the future by sharing that reason why it is important to our kūpuna, to our makua, to our keiki, mo'opuna. All of those are all of our ohana, so that wisdom can be passed on.
I think when I think about this question, it probably is most helpful if I share examples, but I think it's being at the nexus of culture and community always in everything that we do. And no matter what space we're in, we're always bringing in and pushing the canon of what that might look like, feel like, all the things. So 2 things that I'm working on currently that are exciting me, keeping my fire lit, is the Mauna Kea management plan for our Mauna. And I'm super humbled to be on a team of 15 Native Hawaiians, 7 Native Hawaiian firms that are sitting around a table and taking all of the work that's come before us and trying to think about how we move forward in this, in caring for the Mauna. And, some people may think the state is the client, the state of Hawaii, or the authority, the Mauna Kea Authority is the client, but really the Mauna is the client. And now we're in a room where collectively we all know that. That's our North Star. At the end of the day, the Mauna is the North Star, and we're there for the Mauna. And then to be sitting across with leaders who are on the authority, who are also Native Hawaiian, who have done tremendous work in our community, and to be thinking about and problem solving for this contemporary issue. To me, that's the nexus of community and culture. That's the gifts that we have inherited from all of the people that have come before us. And then the heaviness, the weight, the kaumaha, if you will, of the kuleana, to create something that protects Mauna Kea in perpetuity for our people. So that's an example, I think, that's very visceral in our community, that we feel, that we see, that we're all passionate about. The other is we're doing Moana 2 live action in Hawaiian language right now, and that's super exciting. We're mid-production under the direction of Tai Sanga at the moment, and that's going to be released on Disney Plus at the end of the year. And we were able to get the license from Disney. Yay! For Moana 2, but really if we do a good job, we can get the entire catalog so that our Keiki Olelo Hawaii and our community has access globally to stories that they've come to love in their own language.
I can go. I think when you mentioned evolution, where we are right now, what we're doing right now, where we are, to me, is an example of us evolving. We are here having a convention for Native Hawaiians celebrating being Hawaiian on the continent that many consider the continent of the colonizer. So to me, that's an evolution in terms of us reaching a level of security where we can go be anywhere and still be Hawaiian, yeah? And that's something that many of us, especially from my generation, my mother's generation, it took a while for me to reach that point. It took a while for me to say to a group of Hawaiians that I was not born in Hawaii, I was born in Washington, D.C., because I wanted, it's an identity thing, right? And it's reaching that level of security that's so important. The other thing, getting back to the convention, is the intentionality about it. We're not just on the continent, we are on a specific place where there are Native people, and so we're going to do it with that purpose. So to me, that's evolution. That's us evolving as a people.
And I think I'll just add to that, recognizing the evolution, right, is a big part of what it means for our culture to evolve. And so I'll offer Manao, actually from my kūpuna, one of my living kūpuna. And when we give her an update or tell her a story or something, her response is often, "How you know? Who said?" Right? And so sometimes I think as we evolve, right, we need to have the opportunity to just stop and be like, okay, did this happen? How do we know? Are we okay with it? And maybe we need forum more like this to be able to have the discussion and say, okay, we're evolving, we're there, we're comfortable with it, or maybe not. But I think having a place to have that discussion so we can just do that check, like who said? Who said this is okay? Who said this is not okay, right? And just as a community, right, move forward together.
Awesome. Audience, how are you liking these answers so far? Yeah, I agree. Phenomenal, phenomenal. I want to ask, the truth, right, is that Native Hawaiians don't live in any systems that are governed by us, governed by our culture, governed by ʻike kūpuna. We create kipuka for ourselves, but the governing systems are not run by these values. And so what you've all accomplished and our daily struggle to be well is inside systems that often don't align with what we've learned, what we're trying to restore. So I'm wondering if you have thoughts about how best do we do that? How best, and all of you referenced this in different ways. Do you have inspiration for audience members in this context? Like, how can they continue to root in ʻike kūpuna, evolve culture, and feel like, yes, I'm Hawaiian, wherever I'm at in this journey?
Well, for me, ʻike kūpuna, ʻike Hawaii starts with ohana, and for me, not having had anyone within my ohana to share that ʻike, that understanding, those practices with me growing up, I had to find other kūpuna that would be willing to teach me and allow me that access point into that understanding. And because of that, I'm able to bring that back into my ohana and share it with my ohana, my brothers, my mom and my dad, my nephews and nieces, all the ohana in that would not have had the opportunity before because of my own desire to wanting to understand how our kūpuna of our family practiced different things, understood different things, and it was with the generosity of others' kūpuna that allowed that for me to bring that back into my ohana and create that foundation once again. And I think that's where everything should start. Start off within the ohana, and if it is there, I think there's no question on how others, when we all gather as a group like this, as one large ohana, can really make a big difference.
To be Hawaiian is to be ohana. How did you ask? How does someone ask kūpuna that's not from our own ohana if they would, gift us with that ʻike?
For me, it was a simple question. I always just sit down with kūpuna, never force a question upon them, and listen. And at the right opportunity, I just thank them for the things that they've shared with me, and just share my mo'olelo with them. And in many instances, those kūpuna were willing to share more. It wasn't me forcing a question upon them. It was just me sharing my personal experience within my ohana. And I think we all understand this, right? When we give aloha to one another, it is a very genuine thing. And when you see someone that is in need of something, that is very kanaka, to offer assistance, to offer that aloha back. And so, just the remembering and the experiences that kūpuna share with us is a gift and kuleana that we all need to remember to preserve and pass on to someone else. If not within our ohana, hopefully return it back to the ohana that ʻike comes from, so that it lives on forever.
Mahalo.
Mahalo nui for that. I agree. I think that there's been many systems that have disrupted our way of life as a people. I think also, though, that we've now learned to master those systems, and we are now deconstructing them and reconstructing systems that make sense to us, that feel good to us. And I think that always the answer is in our connection to Aina, and because I have an ocean family, I have to say the ocean. But those places hold the secrets. And I remember having this conversation with one of my kumu, Dr. Kanalu Young, that, when you go to the mountains, to your mountain, there's something physical that happens to you in your body that shifts. The chemistry, the biology, it's shifting and moving you closer to something. And we're seekers and lovers of knowledge, right? Kaui Keoli said, "Heau puni palapala ko'u," and I think that's true for each of us. We're born with that i'ini. So when we're missing that, right, we tend to attract things that fill in those spaces for us. And when I look at my children in the ocean, for example, the love language that they have with the ocean is not something that was learned. It's something that's within them. And maybe they don't go to the ocean for all the same reasons that our kūpuna or my kūpuna went to the ocean for, but that language is deep within who they are. And it's so visual, you can see it when they're dancing on the ocean or in the ocean or fishing, that it's that lived experience combined with that i'ini for more knowledge, right? And putting ourselves in those places, whether it's in the ocean or on Aina, and it doesn't have to be only in Hawaii, right? It's connecting to the places in which are nurturing and feeding you, right? Aina is that which feeds. Whatever is feeding you, wherever you are in the world, our kūpuna system is that to know that place is to know yourself. So reinvesting in that space is so important. And I think, to me, those are the systems that matter. When I think about it in business, I always, I'm now in a position where I get to mentor a lot of people. I think that Hawaiians were naturally entrepreneurs, period. It's not a new thing. I think that we always took all of the resources that we had, whether within our ohana, our hale, our community, our kaiaulu, and then we managed those resources for the best possible return. We may care about how those resources are managed a little more than our counterparts in the Western world, but that's to our advantage. It is our competitive advantage to be a Native Hawaiian entrepreneur, right? Because we understand resource management like Indigenous people around the world better than our counterparts that created Western systems. So then we're able to really manage the vai-vai that comes out of the time and energy that we spend on a project or in a place. And we're always looking for the vai-vai that brings more life to the land, more life to our community, and life for our ohana. So those are, some things I think about in that respect.
Mahalo.
I can only speak to my personal journey in terms of, systems and spaces where kanaka don't normally exist, and getting back to me being an actor, and when I started acting 30-something years ago, there were no kanaka doing what I do. And I had a moment where I'm like, wow, I've chosen to do this for the rest of my life. So it's either tell someone else's stories, or tell our own. And at the time, that material wasn't out there, so I became a playwright out of necessity. I'm not a trained writer. I just started to write and literally became a one-man show because of, again, out of necessity, because no one else was doing it. And I did that because, and I was just talking to a young Hawaiian actor just the other day, and she asked me about my journey, and I said, I had a vision. I was able to envision where I wanted to be, where I am right now. I envisioned Chief of War 30 years ago. I didn't know it was going to be called Chief of War, but I knew that that moment will happen someday because I allowed myself to have that vision. And I think a lot of times, at least speaking for myself and those around me growing up, we weren't encouraged necessarily to have a vision, right? So that's one thing that I try to impart in the young Kanaka that I mentor. And then I had another thought. I think I lost it. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. If it comes back to me, I'll share it with you.
So when I was hearing the question, I wasn't really paying attention because you lost me at systems and governance and we're not there. And I'm like, yes, we are, right? But this is what I'll say, right? If there's a system that we need to get into, get in the system. And, people might say we don't belong or whatever. No, we make space, we'll get in there, and we are gonna do what we have to do for our community, for the Lahui. And this is something that this is something that, I learned, through Hawaiian Civic Club Mea. But, okay, when we think about the system, whether it's, I'm a government person, right? Wearing a different hat, I work for the government. I love it, it is my dream job. I know it's not for everyone, but that's a system where we need more kanaka in the system. And I'll come back to that. But whatever system you are in, or you are interested, or you are drawn to, whether it is arts and acting, whether it is healthcare, whether it is education, whatever, our systems around us need more of us in them. I'll say that. But coming back to government, right? There have been 8 kanaka in the halls of Congress. Prince Kuhio was one of them, but there were 7 others, and we often forget, right? If you think of the people who have been elected to represent our aina, our pai aina in Washington, D.C., there have been more Native Hawaiians called to do that, called to that mission than any other ethnicity in Hawaii, right? More than the Kepani, more than the Haole, there have been more Native Hawaiians. Our fingerprints have been in those halls of Congress, and they belong there. So whether it's the government system at that level, I mean, they're not running right now, which is maybe if there were more of us there, we wouldn't be in this shutdown. But, right, government is a place where we need to be in. There's plenty of hana for us to do in all these systems, but speaking as a government person, like, get in the system, be part of our governance, not just, for our lahui, but, for Hawaii. And even if you don't live in Hawaii, right, get in the system that affects your ohana and our communities. So I don't know if I answered the question,
Absolutely.
But the words that I heard, that's what I heard.
I heard a lot of chihuing. So, and I like that point. The systems that Kanaka would run and evolve would be good for everybody who calls Hawaii home, no question. So our time is up. So to wrap up, I'm gonna give each of you a minute. All of our audience here, 1,500 folks. And part of our intention for the convention is to educate and inspire and connect so that when they go home and they're networking with the folks who couldn't be here, that some of this will go forward. So your final thoughts you want to give to the audience as they go forward to live our culture, evolve our culture in a modern context, rooted in the ʻike kūpuna. We'll go back to you, Dre, and we'll give Marques the final word.
So these are words that were imparted to me as I started, this journey in government service. And it was trust your na'au. And I think, your na'au comes from a place, right? All your ʻike kūpuna kind of ends up there. And so I think if that is what you are drawn to, or when you are, at a crossroads or at a decision point, trusting your na'au is going to be most important. And so as we think about how our culture evolves and what grounds us and what centers us and what our North Star is, I think if you trust your na'au, I don't think you can go wrong. So I will leave with that closing mana'o.
I guess I'll leave with one of my favorite words, audacity, and reminding us of the audacity of our kūpuna. They were audacious people, and we don't think of them as that, but they were. They were forward thinkers. They were entrepreneurs. They were inventors. They were all of those things. They were not in any sort of box. They did their own thing. When new things came to Hawaii, they embraced it and figured out how to make it their own, like the printing press. And they took the printing press, and we knew what they did with that. We became the most literate nation in the world. So I want to remind ourselves of the audaciousness of our kūpuna.
I love that. It reminds me, oftentimes we come into spaces where we feel small or we're made to feel small, but to take up space and to be our true authentic selves. I think one thing that my dad gifted me, and he was a pure Hawaiian fisherman from Waihinu, suffered all the colonial diseases that many of our kūpuna have and our makua have. But the beauty of what I learned from his life is that if he was born 100 years earlier, he would probably be the wealthiest person in the village. But taking my inheritance, which was this term, make magic, is the one thing that he left me. And he told it to me my whole life. He had this unapologetic belief that I was magic and that magic existed, and to leave space for that always. So no matter what we're facing in any room, with any situation, any problem, any challenge, that we are collectively magic, you're magic, and go out there and make magic.
I'd like to close with something that was shared with me by my kumu. Kumu John Keola, Makainana, o Kalahui, no Kalani, no Kamehameha e Kolu Lake. And he shared with myself and his haumana that we are Hawaii, and Hawaii is wherever we are. Yes. And so, Eia Hawaii nuia ke, Hawaii nui, Hawaii ki. Hawaii loa, Hawaii poko, Hawaii luna, Hawaii lalo, I loko kamoana o kanaloa. Ue kalani, na ue kahonua, ne e kahonua, ola I kahonua, hola kahonua. Kuo Hawaii lua o ke kūpuna, kūpaa ke kanaka mauli. Ki he mauliola, e ola.
Mahalo, mahalo. Please give our panel members one final thank you. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui, mahalo nui. Ladies and gentlemen, since you're already standing, keep it going. Another round of applause for another panel of heavy hitters all the way from Hawaii.